Thank you everyone for joining me on this second part of this overly verbose and analytical playthrough of Final Fantasy VII. And yeah, let's just jump straight to it, to where we left off. Allow me a second to just adjust things. Now comes the scary moment, right? Did it save my save? It did. I actually had the save state just in case. Actually, kind of interesting that it saves the coloration per save file. I actually didn't know or remember this. So you see, it has like the default and then my custom coloration there. Bit of Barrett's theme over here. Right, so where we left off last time, we were still in the early parts of the game, sort of thinking about where the player is at this point. We've bombed a Mako reactor, we've gotten a sort of introduction to our characters, their plights, on some base level. We don't know a whole lot, but we definitely have enough to go on. We know who this group of Avalanche is, then we know what they're doing and why they're doing it. We've gotten a firm grasp, I feel, of the world as we know it. And I feel this is usually what I like in fiction, is to sort of start small and grow bigger in a way. You can allude to something bigger, of course, but it's like, I think the reason why the Midgar section of Final Fantasy VII is so memorable, because it's so focused on that area, and then it expands to something larger than itself, and I think it maintains a consistent quality, a consistent escalation. If anything, and this feels slightly heretical to say, I feel Final Fantasy IX gets a little worse by the end of it, and I don't think I'm alone in saying that. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII, what we know, we're this terror group, Avalanche, eco-terrorists, trying to stop Shinra, the electric company, from sucking Mako energy out of the planet, killing the planet essentially. And we're sort of committing evils for the greater good, blowing up stuff. Right. Actually, very surprised that I didn't get any flack for these menus here. I wonder if I should... we'll keep it as is. I also neglected last time to talk a little bit about Tifa, because I got caught up in other conversational topics. But I still have my trusty art book over here. So I'll give you some factoids about Tifa here, and a little bit of an interesting thing that was going on with this game. So she's 20 years old. I think Cloud was, 21. She's born on May 3rd. She's got blood type B. Handy to know. I wish, and there's probably YouTube videos and essays on this, I just wonder what the blood types denote, because I know it's, and it was stated by people in the chat last stream, that it's kind of a Japanese, probably also broader Asian topic of a little bit like horoscopes, like your blood type says something about you. Let me actually close this Discord. Sorry guys. There we are. Sorry for everybody who got a Discord ping panic right now. It's 167 centimeters. How compared to Cloud's 173? Yeah. She's also kind of an interesting character in that she uses gloves, as in she just punches things, which I think, frankly, is kind of badass. I think there's people say there's a lot of things about Tifa to like, haha jokes, jokes and everything, but there's something very endearing about her character as well. You remember the last stream, she was really appealing to Cloud's sort of childhood origin promises, you know, their sort of relationship. She was also talking Barrett down. Like, she's the glue that kind of keeps this whole group together, right? Kind of an unsung hero in that way, and I think she definitely has her own arc, but I also think she's kind of the game's as in terms of the party that you play with. Well, compared to the more comedic character, but I would say that she's definitely the party's greatest optimist. Yeah, let me put my book down. Let's see. Tifa is best character. I definitely can understand that, Molgaro. And yeah, I understand personality. Of course, I just wish that this art guide, for instance, told me a little bit about what they denote. And yeah, for the people joining for the first time, this is an overly verbose and analytical playthrough. I will try and space things out, but I will be sort of pausing to analyze, talk about topics. I even have methods to draw on screen, post images, the works. Yeah. The real navel gazing, real ponderous, really analytical. You know, if you can't handle the yapping, this isn't the playthrough for you. So what we're doing now is that we're heading out to do another mission. We got a deal with Barrett for a higher salary, or a little bit higher, supposedly. And yeah, right now we're back in the slums near Tifa's bar before we're heading out by train again. Oh yeah, I think this is a strange one, because what we think is going on here isn't what's going on here. Using my language carefully here. But there's this couple and they've come to an agreement. And people have put some meaning onto this, which I don't think is the actual meaning. I forget the details. Maybe somebody in chat can fill us out about this, but I do actually think it's meant to be a comedy bit. What's the YouTube terminology? Unaliving? Retiring? Good morning, it's a new day, but nothing's changed, has it? Oh. Kinda like that the train conductor, or whatever he is, cares enough. He did tell us last stream about, you know, all he does is see people come and go and see their stories. Right, so we're gonna head into a portion of the game which I think is a lot more gameplay focused. Let me just have a sip here. Can we see a little bit of class divide? I do like how Barrett knows all these things, all these strategies, so definitely like a leader role. But the natural tendency of the Avalanche members is just to group together because they're friends. And Barrett has to like ask them to cut that out. Because it, you know, small group like them, like Avalanche, is definitely divide and conquer. Well, Molgardo, something I talked a little bit about last stream is how you write things can have larger implications. Sometimes very, very small, sometimes very large, right? Like, if you have like a story set in a fictional universe and somebody says, geez, even that's like an implication of, geez come from Jesus. But how much of that you're willing to forgo is sort of up to you. And you can definitely take it the other way around, like, we all know the trope of pretend swears, made-up swears for fiction. Now Barrett is suspicious. This train employee. I was about to say call him a Shinra employee, which I don't know. He, I would be willing to bet Shinra owns the train company, so he is sort of with Shinra by extension. I was gonna say that just because there's a lot of red in the non-combat units of Shinra, it seems. Like, there's the officer type that we saw before going onto the train. Then we have this guy. We'll see a lot more of them at Shinra Tower later. Yeah, and there we have it. Okay. Okay, I'm actually sorry. I forgot about this detail. And Barrett's currently aiming with his non-gun arm at this guy. If you noticed. And you see if Tifa comes in with the cooler head. I've kind of had well-meaning people in my life be mad at me for not being more stressed like that. Just find that very funny. Right, so we're heading up now. So yeah, we can see that the game is using its art style as best as it can. You can see the flashing between the windows, the sort of dangly ropes on top, and of course the electric light on the right. And in my experience, this is very effective. And it's something I realized with combustion, like the easiest way to breathe life into a scene is to give it some motion. It's actually kind of incredible how much motion there is in the world when you notice it. Like, things you wouldn't normally think about, but, especially in the vehicle, is of course very easy. You just have stuff passing by the window. But even like a street shot, you of course think, oh, just people walking by and everything, but just little something blowing in the wind, something with lights. Try and avoid the absolute obvious, like a flickering light is very easy to overdo. Right. So now we're actually getting into the plan of things here. Talking about our fake IDs. Shinra time. Wonder if I should start posting when the stream happens in Shinra time. And this guy we also saw last stream, the guy sleeping in the train over here. You're welcome, buddy. Shinra employee over here having a breakdown. Okay. Ah, didn't get to talk to Barrett. you gotta love Barrett. I don't think there's any of like the main cast, even like the Yuffie, something like even the characters people consider annoying, I have sort of an endearment or attachment to. The ID check seems preemptive. I think, you know, to apply a little bit of criticism, the sort of analysis detection thing that goes on, like at the first time at the train and currently, seems a little vague in a sense. What I mean is, like, there should be something visual on screen to, I don't know, convey that there's like a detection going on. I know the alarm is going on, but you know, something gets scanned and thereby the IDs have failed. You know, like a semi-translucent. You know, what you could have done, you could have like a semi-translucent plane or something. But, you know, it's difficult to do with pre-rendered graphics, of course. Okay, so something's wrong. I love the track playing right now, in terms of the panic that it causes. And I'll try to go through this gameplay portion relatively quickly, because I know it's probably annoying to have an alarm on in the background. I know there's some stuff going on that... Oh, a little bit stuck. And I actually don't know if it's... I think it's like game over if you fail or something. And here we see something that happens sometimes in this game, is sort of cutscenes, events going on while you're able to move around, which I appreciate. It does make it extra dynamic. And you see that sort of benefit that I talked about, of, you know, larger crowds and everything. I think this guy steals our money or something. Ah, shit. Ah! Okay. We made it, yeah. I think he steals some of your money. I think that's it. And I wonder if... You see the guy who's naked on the train? Aha, so Avalanche is in disguise. Very manly. See a little bit of that comedy again. Okay. I always wonder about this. I think it's because just of clarity, visual clarity of where you are and everything, but did Barrett's just sit down? It sort of almost looks like this is happening on a stage and Barrett jumped off the stage. And here's just a fun detail, or piece of logic, is that, you know, we can keep on having this conversation indefinitely, and it's like, Tifa would be like, way back there, right? Hello, Dr. Waddle Dee. Nice of you to join. We're about to jump off a train. And yeah, I like that Barrett actually references your hair. I wonder if that was something different in Japanese just because everybody does like a facepalm gesture at Barrett at the moment he jumps out. So we're heading to Reactor 5. Big Swedge and Jesse has gone up ahead. Maybe it becomes clearer later, but I don't actually remember what they do because, you know, spoilers, we're gonna get separated later. And I think there's like an optional like outpost or something if you just keep heading in this direction. Just in case. I own this game 5 times over, so I'm in the clear. Like, I'm thinking about what comes later on in the game and how much detail is in the Midgar section compared to here. I think the implication is a lot of the monsters and everything that we see in this game in these portions are in some ways caused by the pollution of Mako energy. I know for sure that's like the implication in... I'm just gonna be using the limit break sometimes. Just because I know we're probably gonna be having it later on anyways. I know it's definitely the case in Final Fantasy IX. Oh, this is it's emulated, but it's still the final PlayStation 1 version, yes. One thing I didn't mention last time, which is kind of a Final Fantasy staple ever since we got into narrative Final Fantasies, is that characters basically never start on level 1, do they? And I think, you know, the implication is supposed to be that they have some experience when you get their hand on them. I know Final Fantasy VII has like flashback sequences with Cloud, for instance, but because I think we started at like level 5 or 6 or something. Just kind of interesting, I find. This is like one of those why are you doing this type things? Because we're supposed to go the other way. I just have it in my head that there's something in this other direction, like an outpost or a war ward or something. This is gonna be an overly verbose and analytical playthrough of Final Fantasy VII, but I have to admit that I'm not necessarily the best player of it. This is typical among game developers, I'd say. So we're gonna be talking more about the mechanics and such eventually, because I have some notes about that as well. But what I'm not gonna be able to do is all the crazy tricks that you see online. Like, I don't think this is gonna be like a playthrough where we do all the weapons, for instance. Oop. Caught behind the pillar there. Uh-huh. Stop motion. Do tell. Do tell. I'm a big fan of stop motion. And yeah, Tifa's limit break here is of course something different from the rest, this sort of slot machine. Which gets bigger and bigger, if I'm not mistaken. Damn, Wadley, you're getting into basically everything. Yeah, here we are. Right. I can have a movement. I'm also trying to break the resource hogging tendency. Oh, let's go pick a fight. And yeah, of course, on the ground, more chevrons. I'm probably gonna do like an... Actually, I should have cured her maybe instead. Oh well. And even though we've gone 3D, you'll see that these are essentially palette swaps of the previous enemies. With the guys we just met, I think it's pretty much confirmed that these are guys in freaky uniforms. So, I don't remember this alarm sound. Huh. I think if we keep up this for too long, we're just gonna die, so... Maybe we... Can't escape, okay. The game's overall pretty forgiving still. Like you can see it really teaching you something about type advantage. Also mixed with, you know, generally how magic is more powerful than regular attacks. Yeah, it's there, so of course you engage with it. We're probably just gonna head off, right? Yeah, but I was surprised by the alarm. If you guys can bear with me, I'm just gonna run back and, you know, take those levels so it's easier for the upcoming boss fight. And the game's actually being very merciful with with the random encounters. I know I was just interrupted, but it was actually kind of nice. I like the texture work on the door that we just saw on the right there. I wonder if I maybe should look into sort of the systems that Boundary Break uses, so I can actually move the camera during scenes like this. Because yeah, there's a crazy amount of texture detail. I believe a lot of this was... Yeah, look at that door. Look at that corridor. I know for a fact that what was very common at the time was actually to pre-render stuff and turn that into textures. which is an effective method and a cool style unto itself. I actually did play the Paper Mario 1000-Year Doll or remake or remaster, whatever you want to call it. I had played the original and I really enjoyed it. Even, yeah, the final boss portion, even though I was massively overleveled. Good time. I think, currently things are fairly easy right now. And I think a lot of that is owed to, they were well aware during the development of this game that it would be the first RPG for a lot of people. I wish, if it was like criticism, some of the attacks, like the searchlight attack from the first boss and the thread attacks that we see here, they have some sort of effect on you, much like they do in Pokemon, but I think it would be good if it was better communicated exactly what happens. We got an item. Spiderweb. Yeah, causes slow. And here we see the justification of, why don't we just revive characters who are dead? You'll see here that this is for items for an ally who is knocked out. So not dead, but knocked out. We'll get into all of that in the future too, of course. Yeah, these are... I would have liked if these beams had some sort of representation as the train passed and was hit by these. I think this is kind of cool in that something like this technology seems like at the cusp, like the height of this technology that we see right now, because Dieselpunk bleeds into Cyberpunk, etc. I think anything that involves like lasers and holograms, which is, you think about the 20th century, lasers and everything existed back then, even stuff like VR and such, but with a certain crudity to it. And we have another chevron in the background for good measure. We're just gonna jump down. I wonder if this is like a Star Wars garbage chute inspiration. Some more chevrons? I told you once you see those chevrons, you're never gonna stop noticing them. I mean, look, there's even some chevrons there. More chevrons in the background. sorry if that's really annoying to you guys, but I think it's like, if there's gonna be one running joke in this playthrough, it's probably gonna be just that, because I abuse those a lot in my own game, but I also see that happens in other games, old or indie. It's just such a strong visual to fall back on. Damn. We're taking a little nap. A little bit later we'll be talking more, I would say, about the visuals and the nature of pre-render. I do want to say, just going back and forth here a bit, is another example of what I talked about last time. That even though we've gone pre-rendered, so it's not actually by some measures true real-time 3D, they're still using a lot of verticality. Do we have a couple of ethers? And yeah, I think this is something I remember seeing in the remake that's a little better, but you can actually see the sort of landscape of the slums underneath, because I think now we're basically kind of below the plate, going up into the reactor, if I'm not mistaken. Hello, witch. What way? This way or that way? Several ways, witch. Here you see another trick that I kind of like to use, especially when you're using what's called like BSP brushes in game development, which is, if you think about old games like, say, Quake or especially Half-Life, I would say, like an easy way to sort of break a pattern of a wall or floor or something is to just do what they're doing here, which is make an indent down, then you have some machinery in there. You have sort of like, it has an implication that you've removed a plate from something. And a lot of times in combustion, when you see that, you can actually look around and find that plate that has been taken off the wall or floor. And they usually sometimes some tools nearby, because the implication is, somebody's fixing it. Hello, Jesse. Oh, Jesse put too much into her ID card. I would actually like to see that ID card now, like what detail did she give Cloud that set off the alarm? I think there's like an extra goodie in here. Or it might be the other area. Oh. Streamer eyes. I'm sorry. Really, Farrell? That's funny. I remember when me and my family, when I was young, visited England, and my father tried to ask for a straw, but he couldn't remember the name, so he called it a sucking pipe, which works, but it's a very direct translation from Norwegian. We're gonna hold on to Barrett's anger here. The sucking pipe gets the job done, doesn't it? Though it sounds slightly rude, I guess. Okay, no Among Us jokes in chat, alright? And it inverted my controls. Because I'm pushing up right now. I was pushing sort of down. Yeah, I think this is like the FF7 team channeling Die Hard. Oh, okay. So not root, I guess. And if I push... Now it inverted itself again. Okay, that's interesting. I went over that in the first stream, Dave, and it's basically them trying to replicate the sort of chibi style that they were using for Final Fantasy VI. Here's another chevron, by the way. That's why they have that, and I've talked about, and I do believe it is a justified choice, just in terms of what it does for performance, ease of, creating characters, and compared to Final Fantasy VIII, there's a lot more crowd shots in Final Fantasy VII, and a lot more NPC variety as well. We got a tent. Now comes the question, are we going to be using that tent? I will definitely agree that the execution maybe leaves something to be desired, but it's definitely, I think, justified in terms of how they use it. It's a stylistic choice that doesn't necessarily pay off. Cloud's not the best looking guy around. I know. I know what you're referencing. Potions are gonna wear out their use eventually, so we're just gonna be using stuff that we have. Heresy, I know. Yeah, that's good. Keep us angry. I'm reading a little bit into the background now, and I'm very confident that this whole environment is rendered in 3D, but I don't have any doubts that things get touched up afterwards. It's like when you hear about, say, Donkey Kong Country, and the monkeys in that are pre-rendered as well, but they actually did a lot of touch-up, especially so things like eyes and expressions became clearer, because pre-rendered will get you there, but certain details, especially at certain resolutions, won't come through as much. So there's a lot of touch-up in those sprites. Ooh, it feels bad to use it neither, but So I wonder what, Big Switch and Jesse were doing on this mission, because they're very fast to head out. And they were in the skies a moment ago, so they did manage. Here's an instance where I feel that Chevron actually makes sense, because, those yellow and black stripes are meant to denote danger, and, you wouldn't want that to happen with most people. Yeah, this is a spoilerful, spoilers galore, Dave, so anybody who's here should simply, expect to be spoiled. This is, also a time where we see a little bit of reuse. Interestingly, there's some differences, like the stairway here is not destroyed, but even so, it doesn't connect to anything, which is confusing. And I've never been sure, but I've always taken the piece of metal here on the left to be an entranceway, but you can see clouds actually behind that, so I don't know what that is. Like, let's see if this thing here works. Yeah. Like this thing. What is that? Like, I thought that was like an entryway, but clouds behind it, so I don't know. Seems strange. Just wanted to test this to see if I could draw while the music is still playing. Then again, I must just imagine that, you know, Shinra safety regulations are poor to none, right? Unless you're like at the 1% of the 1% in the company, or nobody's gonna really care about your safety. Yeah, now we start to get very abstract with... Actually, let's see if we can. Love that little scatter sound. Yeah, we were just talking about that as well, Dave. I feel FF7 has more consistency, where Final Fantasy IX unfortunately falls a little bit by the end. That's fair, that's fair. We're gonna keep it at an even pace. And, you know, we've been covering mostly straightforward gameplay right now, because this whole portion is kind of a repetition of the first one. And if I were to be analytical about it, I'm a little divided. Well, it's just to speed things up, Dave, because as I'm saying, this is identical scenes to one that we were at previously, just the coloration of it is different. But it does sort of build things up, because we do have a headache like we did last time. Here we say Tifa. Back in the day when she had like a cowgirl outfit. And we get our first mention of Sephiroth. A little bit of a foreshadowing. Actually, it's kind of a double foreshadowing, because... Or, like, it's a flashback that foreshadows things that are gonna be happening later, and even the method of how this happens, with how it sort of is messing with Cloud right about now, also foreshadows future problems, so... For a brief moment, Cloud seems to have some you know, you could definitely read a lot in there. With this memory of the Tifa's trauma. He sees that again. Sees Tifa and has like a moment. Then he pulls himself together. Chevron on top for good measure, and we're out of here. No timer this time. Let's see, is there some kind of... Nah, that's its own thing, this... I forget, does using a tent stop your limit break? Thing is, I've been avoiding giving a damaging materia to Barret, because I'm I'm kind of afraid of forgetting it, but to unequip it before we lose him in the party, but, you know, we're probably gonna be able to get that anyways. I can share that it's definitely worth looking up the demo, some gameplay of the demo of this, which deals with the first Mako reactor. And then you'll hear that the music is actually mixed different, which is interesting. I think we're just gonna use a tent, just so everybody's got their ether or mana and health up. Since the game gave it to us very deliberately to use, we're gonna use it. Role-playing a little bit more of an inexperienced player. Another thing that is sort of fun to do as a game developer is, much like the chevrons, looking at decals on things. I just write out whatever. You know, that's how we get lots of Easter eggs, numbers and letters that means something to someone. So if you walk around in any place with anything mildly industrial, you'll see these types of decals, and they obviously mean something. But when you're making something fictional, this is not an area where you're gonna face a lot of scrutiny as a developer. If it looks the part, then you can sort of infer that, you know, what's all, you know, look at the scene, you know, tons of girders and pipes and everything. What is this room that we're in actually for? It's all abstract. But it looks the part. Okay. I remember the Final Fantasy VIII demo. Came with one of the copies of Final Fantasy VII that I have. Just gonna give... Actually... Alright. So he has some magical attack. Ah yes, this is going to be an interesting portion because this is a bit of a love and hate thing. How do I put this? Final Fantasy VII strives for a lot, right? It's 3D, it's on a CD, it's new, it's exciting, and one of the things that keeps happening in Final Fantasy VII is an inconsistent and unusual amount of interaction, like this portion here coming up. And I have a great deal of respect for it in a way, for what it's trying to do. I think by today's sort of quality standards, it seems strange or obtuse, all the minigames and such that the game has. But I find it endearing, and it definitely makes the game less static, I should say. Even though, you know, the portion that we're going into here isn't the game at its finest. Prepare for next 30 minutes. Because we have to push a button simultaneously. Which is... It's unusual, I should definitely say that, because you don't have anything to really go on, right? But it is interactive. It is different from the usual gameplay that you see in the game. And it's kind of like a back and forth discussion of, do you want this sort of thing in the game? Like, what additional gameplay types are you able to accept as a player, or would you want as a player? Because I would say the inverse of this, something that used to be very popular at least, is fishing minigames, for instance. You know, a lot of the Zelda games has that. And you know, this game also has things that people love. Yeah, that's... Almost. There we are. Good enough, right? It's just a short sequence. Like, I just think this is interesting. I think it's interesting because it's just an experimenting, trying new things. I do think, in a way, we are too locked down as players and developers, so we're afraid to try things like this. And you know, I wouldn't call this a success necessarily, what we just experienced. But it does break up, it does add to the pacing a little bit. Some tiny chevrons as reward on the doorway there. Now we get a little bit more of that verticality where we can see down. Just sort of looking at things, reading them. Because now we get the deviation from what happened last time. Yeah, I think it pretty much confirmed since last time that this is uncensored compared to the localization that I had growing up. President Shinra and his chevrons. And yeah, you see the iconic red suit again. So it must be a Shinra staple. Seems none too interested. Oh yeah, the Shinra theme. Definitely. I have a lot to say about it. What let's just vibe out a little on the music for a while. The Shinra theme is very iconic. It's very imposing, but it does have like a breakdown happening in a little while, which has a strong melancholia to it, I would say. I'll point it out when it happens. Yeah, I know Motherload. Here's the part. Because yeah, there is this sort of like tragedy about Shinra and everything, because you know, it's unlike what had been before in Final Fantasy, it's a very human. It's a corporation. It's not even like an evil empire in a way. It's just sort of suffering the cost of progress, I guess. And then it starts over again. Because we do see parts of that, you know. There's people who work with Shinra, some of them, of course, very rotten, but also a lot of them are just regular people, and, you know, it's very believable in a way. I think the word is, like, how they are complicit in what's happening in the world. The guys on top are definitely, like, not, like, good guys, but we get, later on, we get Rufus Shinra, who takes over. And there's like an extra dimension there that I do find interesting, because even for as black and white something like Final Fantasy VII can be at time, there's enough there to read into for extra meaning or real-world parallels. We get them talking about Sephiroth here now, who was just mentioned previously. Which takes Cloud back. And of course Barrett can't keep himself from blowing up. Here you see a little bit more of the writing I mentioned last time, about how we can bring out some extra character by, you know, tasteful leaving out of certain letters, or rewriting them, or putting an apostrophe in the right location. I do think President Shinra is doing this as a flex, because he gives off this, like, I'm too bored, I'm leaving now sort of attitude, but, you know, he did expressly set up this little encounter. And I like how this boss encounter that we're gonna have is essentially like a product test or something for them. Lovely little helicopter there. I wonder if I wonder what the concept art looked like. I couldn't find anything on it, but yeah, another distinction between sort of I would say cyberpunk and dieselpunk is definitely, you see a lot more of those sort of jets that can take off vertically, a lot more sophisticated things like that, while that seemed a lot more like a conventional 20th century helicopter. As does this sort of robot entity. It seems actually very, very clunky. Like, it's like a hovercraft mixed with a vacuum cleaner. Alright, our second boss fight. It's kind of interesting. So we'll do like hurting it in the back. It might be. Oop, oop. I actually don't know if hit or yeah is better on that slot machine. Okay. We'll take care of that. until we can get some healing in the cloud. How they... Like, there's some concept art of the enemies, and my impression, at least, is that it was very... I don't know. Very free and open, I would say. Because we have some enemies so far that have made sense, you know, all the Shinra troops and everything, but then there's a lot of abstract stuff. I do think this is like a... He does say it's like a product from the weapons department over at Shinra, and I do think... I think you know the movie RoboCop. I think there's like a totally a RoboCop thing happening with like inside the company with this robot over now. They're like competing for grant money essentially within Shinra, and right now it's like somebody had this idea. He had this like what he felt that was this brilliant idea with essentially a robot hovercraft, but nah, man, wasn't all there. Ah, yeah. Let me just check one thing here. Yes. I love this effect, by the way. But yeah, now we're gonna see some more. We're gonna see a mix of things. I told about this last stream as well, that this game is kind of all over the place in how it handles cutscenes, because sometimes, like now, we are seeing, you know, pre-rendered video in the background with the sprites on, or the real-time 3D characters on top, and then a little bit after this, we're going to see the characters in the chibi style in the pre-rendered video, and then a little bit later, we're going to see them in their full sort of regular humanoid anatomy in cutscenes later on. And this, as mentioned, was part of like a huge discourse within the development of this game. And I think it's just because and I think this makes a lot of sense, because they had some, basically a year before they really started development on Final Fantasy VII. That's actually when they were starting to get the Silicon Graphics workstations and people to actually teach them how to develop this 3D animation and models. But it was like such a time for drastic improvement and progress that eventually at some point they settled for, this is sort of our budget, our style for Final Fantasy VII. But I'm very certain that during the development of Final Fantasy VII, they were just getting better at doing this. They were just getting better and more effective, and you'll see a lot of high quality in the Midgard chapter. And other parts in the game, that sort of quality is going to go down a bit, just because that came at another part of the game's development when they were less familiar. And you can definitely see, by the rapid progress they made from this into Final Fantasy VIII. And they had two departments on this: the art department for like the cutscenes and the real-time 3D and everything. But also a lot of coalescing, I would say. And now I think they're basically the same inside the company as it exists now, because these things exist to this day. They were just established during the development of Final Fantasy VII. And I'll also be going a little bit as we go further on from here. Now the background is just regular pre-rendered static. Yeah, no, I understand, but I actually wonder how Barrett feels about this because he has a past with somebody dangling like this. I like how Tifa this exchange between Tifa and Cloud where Tifa tells Cloud, "I have so much to tell you," and Cloud goes, "I know." That's very Empire Strikes Back. Han Solo goes down, and Leia says, "I love you." And he goes, "I know." I definitely think that is the case there. Barrett, are you gonna be okay? Okay, let's put on a brave face. As brave face as you can do, I guess. Oh. I know, Final Fantasy VII abstraction and everything, but is there like an expectation here that Cloud's gonna make it? I know this is a world where something like that can happen, and it does indeed happen, but it's very strange how they talk about this. Now you see, yeah. This is also like a shot, I believe, appears in some of the game's advertising. And yeah, Farrell mentioned, by the way, it's like interesting how this game was advertised. And a lot of games were advertised only with these pre-rendered shots. And this is, I think, kind of interesting because, okay, that used to be used exclusively, or used to be used a lot in an advertising for a game, pre-rendered cutscenes. And that is also what would appear a lot of the time in magazines as well. Like I remember, be it Oddworld or Silent Hill or Final Fantasy VII or Siphon Filter, like anything in the old magazines would have these pre-rendered images on them used in advertising. But it was also like a case of these things were often used in cutscenes, like in all the PlayStation Final Fantasy games. That was the case, and that was also like the reward for playing through. And I remember we had this notion of, one day real time graphics is gonna be as good as this, which is this is like a technically it's ray tracing graphics, how they used to render stuff. Now we have that in real time, of course, so that's why you have projects like the Super Mario 64 ray tracing real time, so sort of look like the pre-renders that they showed out there. And I have to be honest, guys, I still miss these in a way, kind of like as a gameplay reward. And if I had the budget, I swear, if I had the budget, I would have like Combustion have that consistent PlayStation 1 look sort of style. And then when something big or important happened, it would go into pre-rendered low frame rate cutscenes like this, because it is a whole vibe. It is a whole look in itself. We have somebody talking to us about something that happened in the past. Thanks for popping in, Zephyr Spark. No worries. Establishing a lot of questions. Like we know what's going on in the sort of the main plot. You know, we have a firm establishment of who is the good guys and who is the bad guys, but we do have hints of a past of something. So there's definitely a mystery going on right now. I wonder how this plays out in the remake, actually. Like, I imagine it's all voices and everything, but sort of what the effects they use for it. I remember as a kid, at this resolution, those flowers are hard to read. I thought they were like cabbages. Like they look like little heads of cabbage, right? Oh no, sorry, not the cabbage, cauliflower. Another iconic song, of course. And again, I'll bring up Advent Children. And I know, that's a very divisive movie and everything, but I do love the fight scene that happens in this church. Like, maybe it's better that the game doesn't really, go into this kind of abstraction, because we know ourselves well enough. It's like a human. You couldn't say to a human being that, oh, thank God you fell onto a roof and then a bed of flowers, and that would save your life, right? But in this universe, in this context, makes sort of sense. You wouldn't bat an eye if something like this happened in, say, Dragon Ball, for instance, or stuff, or an MCU movie, right? I like how we'll get into that as well. But so far we've had basically nothing but dark and industrial and a little bit of hopelessness and things like that, and then we have this very calm, serene scene here in the church with the flowers. Molgaro mentioned God earlier, and who's this church dedicated to? I don't think the game ever says, but I also think that's fine. You don't need to cover everything that happens in the universe if it's not central to it. Another abstraction which is kind of fun is just look at Cloud's feet. Look, these big pointy shoes. Wonder if it's just, with CRTs, things get very blurred, of course, and people talk a lot about that in pixel art, of course, which I would say is less the case in Final Fantasy VII, just because they're trying to get as much detail as they can out of these pre-rendered graphics into, this is working with a whole new resolution and everything, so I just don't think they had that same level of understanding. You'll see some cases of that in this game where sort of details just blur away and get lost. And I like this little... Let's just say this is the first time we met. I think we're definitely not being the nicest there now, but I think like Aerith here has history with Zack, and there's crossover with Cloud, but we also met her earlier technically, and I don't remember all the details, if she's just playing coy or if there's something she's not letting on, or I forget. we're giving fair critique here as well. It's a little bit clunky how she just start talking about her materia and her mother and everything. It's like, yeah, this line here, for instance, I feel like talking. It's like, that's a little bit of an odd line. It'll be part of the overly verbose and analytical part of this video series is, giving fair critique. What works, what doesn't. Welcome back, Bane O'Brien. Hope it's a good sandwich. Now, Aerith here. Of course, Ares in the original translation, and some people prefer that. So just to make sure that nobody gets upset, we're gonna name her Aeriths. Now everybody's happy, right? No, we're not gonna do that. Oh, actually, now I'm a little bit scared because if I okay. Oh, okay. I was afraid that if I hit delete, it was gonna ruin the entire thing. Let's we're gonna keep default names. I think also here's a highlight. Aerith's hair is like I would say like a 80s 90s style that you saw in anime and manga and everything. And I was very happy to see that when I saw Jam from Molgato stream, a character design he did with this sort of, especially like the front of the hair type style. I was very happy to see that because yeah, it's a very nostalgic style I'm very nostalgic for. One thing that those, I mentioned the pre-render stuff, but also the concept art and everything that gets used in the manuals and everything, did a great job to sort of tell us how these characters are supposed to look, because I would say even their battle models are a little bit hard to read, especially for the finer details. This is to say that I advocate that we should all have manuals in our games still. I'm one of those guys. I miss game manuals. I really do. It's being very strange, this Aerith girl. Oh, I was laughing at me. Okay. Alright. Give me just 1 second, guys. Let's see if I can do like half a minute's BRB. Ooh, okay, 2 seconds. There we are. Sorry about that. Let's take a... while the music is nice and chill. Get up the bio for Aerith here. Let me actually see if I have some concept art of the old girl as well. Let's see. I do actually. Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, sorry about that, Farrell. Truth is, I quickly made that image right before the stream started, so I'll make a proper BRB one as well. This is, of course, Cloud, Tifa, Zack, and Aerith in her gown that we see later. Let me bring up her page. Right? 22 years old, born February 7th. Blood type O. 163 centimeters. Well, she, much like Cloud, looking at her, the concept art that I'm seeing is basically kind of identical. She just had a little less pink in her original design. Yeah, this is her later on in the portion that we're gonna get to. You know, this is outside of Cloud, I would say, maybe the character people remembers the most for the obvious reason for, you know, for the longest while. This was like, for the longest while, I would say, Final Fantasy VII was the game that first made people cry, right? First game, many experience that told a story with sufficient amount of characterization, visual storytelling, music like we see now, or hear now, to make people cry. Which, you know, I would say it's definitely disputed. Like, even just Final Fantasy VI that came before this, a lot of people have moments that they remember from that game that made them cry. But there's games that do things first, and then there are the popularizers, and sort of what gets filtered into the public consciousness. It's much like how many people will, for instance, believe that Resident Evil was the first real horror game. And then some people will think, hang on, maybe Alone in the Dark, which, you know, came before any of these games, was the first horror game and user of pre-rendered graphics and etc. etc. And then you can go further behind that in terms of horror, the game Sweet Home on the NES, and then even further beyond that, you have like 3D Monster Maze, which is arguably one of the first-person games as well. So, you know, this goes back more and more and more and more, right? But I think this was a lot of first for people to experience. So who's this guy? And I think this, you know, is another case where a different shot or something could have helped, because this guy Reno over here, yeah, don't mind me, yep. You know, it would have helped to be able to see him, because it's just a shape. It's just a shape right now. Just having myself some peach flavored water. That's true, Farrell. I would say that's why I call call it like a popularizer of something, you'll always find things that resemble things, right? Like virtual pet games, for instance. You have the Tamagotchi, right? But even before that, there were little computer people on C64, etc., etc., etc. But credit where due, you can sort of understand when something is a popularizer to where they are the ones that help set something as standard. I like how Aerith is like pleading rather playfully about needing a bodyguard, and I don't know if Cloud's being sincere here or just if he was expecting to be paid or if it's just being sort of playful and coy like she is. I wonder, you do have to use a little bit of imagination and, your own reading on what they meant there. Like, Cloud's little tut-tut-tut thing there, was that like him actually denying that, or playing into it? Probably playing into it for what happens later. Perk theme. Actually, I have some concept art of those as well. So we'll see all of these later on, and the implication is that the guy on the very right there is the guy that we're currently talking to, Reno, I believe, of the Turks, a sort of, I would say, 3-letter agency guy. Interesting, because, well, let's just say that his weapon of choice had an influence on a certain thing in combustion. Oh yeah, memories come flooding back here. What's interesting, I should also say, is I've kind of modeled some of the cutscene systems that you see in Combustions a little bit of how they are handling actors in this Final Fantasy VII game. It's very characters do these animations, go to these areas, etc. Something that you think would be easier to do nowadays, but it's basically almost kind of like how it was back then. Go to location, XYZ, play animation, do sounds, do this, wait. Spawn text box at this location, wait until player hits next, right? Some of that is, I would say, there's the Unity timeline system that I use in my own game, which doesn't have an option for doing what's going on now. You can pause the cutscene that's playing, but you can't have an active thing where the scene is stopping, but characters are still animating, for instance. You have to find ways around doing that. I mentioned this because it's like one of the posts I made on the Unity forum that I'm still getting questions about to this day. Yeah, Undertale is definitely self-aware in that sort of way. And this method of cutscenes, which existed for a really long time and still exists in some way, has a very distinct play style and pacing to it. Much like how you immediately recognize something that's aping the LucasArts method for a point-and-click game for how dialogue is delivered or animations are done. And I think also a lot of the reason why is a lot of these systems are meant to be used by non-programmers. So that's why you would have kind of script writers who get some sort of base understanding of how the system works, but you have them write scripts where character X does this and then goes to the next character who does this. And it's you see that, and it becomes very readable code in terms of the functions that are being called. Character go to place, play animation, wait 5 seconds, do this, do that. So it's almost like script writing. And enter stage left. Say a line. Huh. Just realized it's like a rune where the cross is. But I wonder if that is the whole Sephiroth. I'll have to look into that, the symbology of that. Or if it's just incidental. Like how Reno runs with I don't know, it just seems like the bad eggs of Shinra. Sort of yucking to themselves. A little bit of comedy there. Right, so this portion coming up. I know there's some funny stuff that happens when you blow this scene. I feel I should have turned off combat encounters here just because of pacing, but it's fine. I wonder if I got my materia back so I can equip something on Aerith. That worked out. I feel the mechanics on display right now are so far so standard, especially compared to what we have nowadays, basically. I remember growing up, like in the 90s, didn't have the biggest lexicon of games, but I just remember finding it kind of odd how similar, in a sense, Pokemon and Final Fantasy VII was. And I wondered if one of them was copying the other. Had no idea about dates or JRPG tropes or anything at the time. Of course I forgot to equip Aerith. Oh, this might go bad. This is another moment of interaction. Actually, I'm gonna be so bold as to, just in case we lose this portion, right? Because I believe this is like the wrong one, right? Do you have a grenade or something? No, we do not. Ooh, these guys don't have a lot of health. Ah, the best games ever, yeah. Yeah, no, it becomes... What do you mean by that? Like... Even like top 10 games, even top 10 games, even within a genre, it's like... What are you putting stock into, right? Is it the legacy of something? Is it your own personal enjoyment of it? Is it popularity? It's very difficult. It can have some value in terms of if you're getting into it, what you should expose yourself to, I would say. Nothing in the way of anything definitive, I would say. We're gonna fail. So can I? No. Let's just keep messing this up, right? Oh no! Depth perception. Just another example of what I talked earlier about how Final Fantasy VII does great with having these scenes and moments. Like little set pieces. That's fair, Dave. I would also say that a lot of the greatest games of all time have problems holding up as well. It's like, I love Ocarina of Time, definitely prolific. I think you definitely could get something out of that nowadays, but it's so hard to sort of justify that choice without caveats. It's a different angle here. And of course, a little bit funny with the scale here, because look how tiny that church looks now. And we get some elaboration on the Turks and who they are. I feel, I've kept my head down, so I haven't been following Deltarune or Silksong, and I know those have taken a lot of time, and people are excited for them. I would say, just keep being patient. I can definitely... No, I'm just one guy. I'm just one little guy, but I can definitely relate to that in a way, and I just hope the developers are okay, that they get to where they want with their games, and that the games become all that they can be. And I also hope that the pressure isn't getting to them. Kind of strange in a way. Like, I definitely put a lot of pressure on myself, but I'm also very lucky that I am kind of small, and everybody I deal with are very nice and everything. But I wonder how that feels, when something takes multitudes of years, etc. Yeah, my utmost respect those developers. Ooh, Last of Us. I have some things to maybe say there. I think what I would say... Okay, Okay, this just pausing a little for effect here. I would say this Sony that we're now experiencing on screen, this is the Sony I grew up with, the one during the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, and even going into PlayStation 3, I would say. This was the quintessential single player story game. This, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil, Oddworld, Tomb Raider, etc. They had stories, they had unique gameplay, they had, unique hooks and everything. Somewhere along the way, the cinematic PlayStation game is something of a meme, I would say, and that's why, and that's the sort of style they've been continuing on ever since then. And so I'm just not really excited for them. Respect to those who do enjoy it really. Just never done much for me. Feel free to disagree in chat. Feel free to disagree in chat. Well, TGC Dave, you are the gaming contrarian, so that only makes sense. And I appreciate that perspective. This is why it's great to have you in chat, because we joke, of course, with being contrarian and everything, but it is, it's a genuine difference in opinion, of course. Yeah, actually, a very good point, Farrell. I was just talking about pre-rendered graphics and how they were built to sell games. I guess what I'm kind of saying is, we got to that reality. The cutscene graphics is as good as the real-time graphics, and vice versa. But now that feels kind of like what it is. I have a firm belief that when it comes to that sort of game, we found something. We found a formula that works, but it's also been a little bit stagnated, and it's a little bit scary to try things. And I understand that, but I feel that's something we should keep doing. That's how you get hits. That's how stuff we're seeing on screen did great, because it did all these new things, became iconic. Nothing stopping you from doing that again, especially now with even more powerful hardware than we've ever had. Going back to Final Fantasy VII, of course, we get some outlier that Aerith here has had run-in with the Turks before. So there's something about this girl that we don't know everything yet. There's something there, establishing another mystery. And I like this little exchange. I like it when characters have kind of a logical deductions, because the Turks are not after Aerith because they want her to join Soldier. But if that's the Turks, what they're famous for doing, it's like a natural assumption. So Cloud asks her, "Would you like to be part of that?" She's like, "I don't know." But she seems dubious about the whole thing. I think also, looking over this scene that we're in, just the amount of detail that they're able to cram in here at this resolution and everything is still, I think, impressive. This is just kind of funny, because this is also like a thing that comes in, like squats coming up, but also like the amount of jumping that's in Final Fantasy VII. I just think it's very funny, because it's such a distinct sound. Let's just, move character from position to position. And see furthers that with the statement about her joining Soldier, as Cloud uses that as a bit of banter when Aerith there gets winded. And they laugh. And they laugh. Which is, there's just enough going on screen with the models and the motion to convey that. And just a little pause you saw in dialogue there where that animation was able to play out for a few seconds. Counts for a lot. And they're re-emphasizing Cloud's eyes. And the green glow of Mako energy. It actually was an interesting thing. I wonder if that's a bug or something, but when I tested this out during the opening sequence with the train and everything, I tried like a test to see if Cloud blinked, because I remember distinctly that he blinked. He wouldn't do that in the first scene of this game, but now he's doing it, so I wonder if there's something going on in the background that stopped that. That's a very minute type detail, of course. Carol and its giraffe. Well, I want to talk with the raccoon on screen. A little bit more and then we'll round things off. There's been a little bit more straightforward gameplay this stream. Definitely will have more to say in the upcoming area. Just gonna... Kind of an odd thing that you're able to go out here. Like the edge of town. And of course some billboard sprites in the background, very common method of today to have extra detail. Basically upstanding, not that type of upstanding, but just 3D planes standing up with a 2D texture on top of it with some transparency. Huh. I wonder why there's so many plates of corrugated iron down here. Oop. Always loved some fun details going on. Love this little hand over here, like it's from a wrecked robot or something. Another thing that we see in this game, I talked about light sources last time. One big realization I believe they had during the development of this game was, you have this tool to be able to see where the exits are, but they definitely use lights a lot. Like in the top right here, definitely use lights a lot to be able to convey where you can exit and enter. And of course I get interrupted there. But they do the same technique on the left there. And it's something I use in my game, even, just because it's so helpful. And actually makes usually some logical world sense as well. And Aerith is so mad She's gonna heal herself. I love the sound effects in this game. Yeah, I would say it's definitely playable. You know, you sort of look on the screen right now, you can see where you can go, where you can't, etc. It's a help, but it's an imperfect game. Now, here controversially, we of course that we have lost a line about somebody being sick. For those of you though who don't know, there it is. In the original, this was localized as "these guys are sick," right? Or "this guy are sick," which has, you know, in this translation patch been fixed. That's also why Barrett is currently swearing like a proper sailor without censoring, etc., etc. Is that the chevron I spot up there? Yes, it is. Scruffy. You know, I would say this is the precarious nature of tweaking, fixing, mixing, and everything is like, and we get very attached to these things, video games, and original works in general, to where we get so in love with them, we even love what can be seen as flaws, or like the entire point of it. And you know, this is a huge discussion. Like, think of all the discussion around Star Wars Special Editions, and like remakes and remasters of games. People get upset if, genuinely get upset if people fix the bugs and issues that they have. And I don't know exactly where I landed this discussion. I do think, on the whole, remakes shouldn't be afraid to do their own thing, because I'm not too, especially these days, not too hot on remakes in general, because I feel the original usually are, you know, the definitive version to play something. I'm one of those guys. And what I also think is, and I think this is ultimately why I'm not so much of a fan of remakes and such these days, is that when Capcom does the remake of Resident Evil 4, for instance, okay. And that's fine, but it also does feel like we've now lost a project that could have been. And I feel like in the old days, that would have been that project that never was now because it became a Resident Evil 4 remake. That used to be something like Resident Evil 0 or a Code Veronica or something. I forget what the deal with this guy is. Number 2 tattoo. He has some sports trophies. You know, male living spaces. You're looking at it right now. It's all you need. You have your 3 trophies there, some reading materials, beer and cigarettes, TV, giant hockey puck. I think it's like a trophy stand without a trophy on it or something. Yeah, I know that's certainly a thing for JRPGs, like, you know, I would say something like, you take Western RPGs, way how they're broken, etc., is definitely different from how JRPGs are sort of broken by the fans. Interesting place. A lot of cigarettes. Lots of cigarettes and beers around here. Wonder if that's in the new one. Cool. Just gonna give some material here. Oh! Damn it! I thought they were with Barrett and Tifa, this materia. Oh, I forgot how this game handles these things. Oh well, oh well. No worries. We'll get some use for them later. Okay. Little fun details like that. I think at this point they were kind of aware of because now we've gone from the 16-bit, you know, there used to be like an abstraction about this, which still exists, which is, you know, you as a protagonist just barging in everywhere, and whoop, we have a Geneva Convention crime on the left there, the little first aid, Red Cross on the left there. That's not okay to do nowadays. I don't think you get in too much trouble. I think you just get the cease and desist type of stuff. Sorry, I'm fumbling my words a little today. Look at like this portion we're in now. Like everything is made of something discarded, scrap metal, all that sort of stuff. We have the light, as described last time. These are like transparent images on top, but it still helps get this sort of haze across. Like when Cloud is underneath this light fixture, for example, he is made a little more blue. I say this because there might be some, but the lighting on the character models themselves very limited to non-existent in this game. Okay. It's amazing though, you know, look at all this detail and how lived in everything seems there. Look at all the cigarettes. Goddamn. Kind of interesting that they talked about, you know, taking care of yourself. This is a weapons store and it only sells grenades as weapons. Just a little bit of... I guess there's... it's worse. Okay, now it's starting to make more sense. I wonder why it says, just, forgive me a second, just, huh, strange. Like made the Farrell's name 620 pixels on my screen. There we go. We have this area, and then, we go over here, and I would say I have some mixed feelings about this, just because of I like contrast, but the contrast from here to here, I would say, is pretty vast. Also, this is a very steep set of stairs for me to be able to run up. Ah. And here, I talked a little bit, like last time, like a lot of the materials have negative effects. But I like this protect material here that is a 20% chance of protecting somebody from taking damage, but you also get +1 vitality. So let's try and use that. It is fitting that Clown has that. So I'm going very default vanilla on this, you know. I would say Aerith's definitely meant to be the healer of the party. You can definitely run these characters atypically. And I like, or I have mixed feelings. I did like in Final Fantasy XII, where you were able to give pretty much any character whatever weapon you wanted them to have, so you could, you know, give the smaller characters all axes if you wanted that, or give everybody firearms. Problem with that, of course, is you lose the iconic designs. I would say, like you can't really imagine Cloud with anything besides his Buster Sword, right? It would feel strange to see Cloud with a gun. But systemically, very, very satisfying. I also like the... Is it Final Fantasy V? Where you have like... you have a cast of characters, but you can make them into different classes, changing their sprites. So they have like a default look, but then they have... each of them can become any class, so it sort of get that class via that character's sort of filter. And I remember that was also very mechanically satisfying, because you could also keep one ability from one class, so you could sort of... It was sort of Final Fantasy dual classing, like in Dungeons and Dragons. And I like that versatility. I have to play more Final Fantasy Tactics. It's one of those games that I'm kind of mad I didn't grow up with, because I feel I would have loved it. I had Vandal Hearts, or my brother had Vandal Hearts, and XCOM, and Jagged Lions. I never had... Yeah. Yeah, just specifically talking about... it's the one... It might be Final Fantasy IV. No, it's Final Fantasy V, because Final Fantasy IV is the one with Cecil and everything, right? And then Final Fantasy V is the one with Butts and crew. And just how everybody could be every class was kind of cool, but doing that changed the sprite, but they still looked like themselves. Let's go in here. So just vibing to a little bit of the music. And I did also say last stream one thing that I appreciate, that the sort of technology aspect of this world, kind of regardless of where you are, if it's like exists in, you know, the larger civilization of the world, it's always in some way touched by technology. Like you even have this, even in this very serene sort of nature environment, you still have this little element that it implies that it's still touched by this. And I also appreciate that somebody took the time to make this little outdenting pipe affect their movement. And, you know, it feels maybe silly to point out, but one of those details you notice, because if you didn't react to it, you think, okay, fine, video games, but The fact that somebody added like a collision to make you sort of incline here speaks to details they would do on this game. You know, it's very funny because nowadays with all IKs and things like that, where you could have character dynamically react to the position that he's standing on, this was just woo. This was like before there was that. This was 3D gaming. Yeah, no, you're right, Farrell. I'm glad I got the number right there. And yeah, I actually, interesting that you say, if it wasn't for the DS, and if it specifically wasn't for the Final Fantasy 3 remake on the Nintendo DS, I might not have been a low poly artist, because that I played that during a very depressing time in my life, and it was kind of weird because it brought out a kind of modern nostalgia in me, which is kind of weird now because the time between Final Fantasy 3 remake and low poly PlayStation 1 is probably shorter than between now and the Final Fantasy 3 DS remake. But it was very endearing to see these very low poly characters, lower detail than something you'd see in Final Fantasy 9 on this little handheld. And if you go to my DeviantArt gallery, you'll see all these low poly medieval style animals. And that was very directly inspired by that remake on the DS. So, funny how that works. Anyways. Yeah. We actually have another thing I like in this game, we actually have a fair bit of family. People have, we just saw Tifa with her father. We'll meet Cloud's mother at some point. We have Aerith's mother here. We actually see more of her parents later on. There's actually a lot of theme about that. Definitely motherhood is a part of the game. The whole Genova angle and what's going on here. But I think about this because many stories we sort of forego that of a character. They're cooler if they don't have a family, so to speak. But I would say something like Barrett, which we'll get into later, is sort of that's one of his core aspects. I'm actually interested, Dave. This isn't a call out on stream. You're not gonna get anything. But when I talk about this game, is it like I'm kind of curious what you think. Like if you can see some of it or not. If you can understand a little why people love it. It's fine if not, of course. This is also, again, why it's great to have Dave in the chat here, because, overly analytical and verbose, we need both opinions. There's actually not such a thing as both opinions, there's a million of them. Now we're setting out like our own personal goals because, just to take a foot to the ground here, we know what we're doing. We're blowing up reactors and everything. Now the mission that we were on to blow up a second Mako reactor went south, and now we've sort of separated from the party itself. We don't know what happened with the rest of them. Let me just see what Dave says here. Call this Final Fantasy the world's biggest baby throws the world's biggest tantrum? What? So I'm trying to decipher that. Oh, no, I really appreciated that, Dr. Wadley, because I can totally get that. Because Final Fantasy VII did become one of those so popular for so long that it does become, and when I say call it like the Citizen Kane of something, you get Citizen Kane of gaming. It becomes so popular that it all becomes tiring to a degree, and it does, much like other games we have mentioned, like Ocarina, suffer from age. And some things it's the first to do. Some stuff it's just I would say the biggest first to popularize aspects. So yeah, no, I can understand that perspective. I try to sort of if I can communicate anything, it's like this game is interesting because not only its history, but I do like what actually goes on in it. But I'm very happy to say this is a solid experience, and for many it was like a foundational experience for a lot of games that came after. And that's of course hard to convey somebody who didn't grow up with it, of course. And we start already getting a little bit of the, what would it be? It's not just a triangle, depending on how you play your cards. A love hexagon? Alright. Now we're already getting into some choices here, like who are we going to romance? Of course, if I knew how to do it, it would be Barrett all time, every time. But yeah. Do we see Tifa as a childhood friend? Do we see her as something more? Are we flirtatious with this one? You know. Decisions. This is, I would say, Final Fantasy is not typically seen as a role-playing game in the pure role-playing sense, but you do have options. And these were also, a lot of the time, how game choices were handled. Sort of dialogue trees and setting states and variables, basically. We're just gonna say... Of course, if this was real time, it was kind of funny that Cloud stopped for a solid minute. So we're heading to Sector 7. Sector 7G, probably. Let's see what Dave said here. Let's see, the first time I played this game, I stopped playing right before the second Mako reactor. It was boring. The second time I played, I stopped right after disc 1, and I finally slogged through it. No, you didn't like the story. The story starts with Shinra evil save the planet, which is fine, but then it becomes Shinra still evil, but has to take a backseat to Sephiroth being a big baby about himself and wants to destroy the planet. Interesting interpretation. I would have some disagreements with that, but fair statement if that's how you experience the game. Yeah, you're right, Farrell. Is this the first one with that sort of system? Oh, Cloud, be careful. Hey, you tell him. I would definitely say that what kind of happens, I think, is a little bit in human nature with what happens with Shinra. It's like, don't react until a problem is too big to ignore, and sort of all the stuff that happens with the Mako cannon, like everything there that goes on to stop Sephiroth and everything, it just, to me, it sort of clicks that this is how kind of humanity would get itself into trouble, how it would sort of get itself out of trouble. And if anything, I will say what Final Fantasy VII does is it does actually do a little bit of the trope where the true evil lies behind what you saw, except that it's not at the very end. Like, we go away from Shinra as the main antagonist until this larger entity, rather than have the larger entity be like a surprise at the very end. No, Shinra sort of does go out of the story because, they get beaten down quite a bit. Like, they're essentially becomes a Godzilla movie at one point where they're like fighting fighting against the weapons and everything. We're negotiating with Aerith's mother so we can go to Sector 7. I forgot her name was Elmira. And I like this. Like, she doesn't know what's up, but she understands that we are Soldier because, of course, she's been caretaking for Aerith, and so she's. It's understandable that she would have this understanding about them, and she doesn't know exactly what's going on, but she would prefer it if Cloud just leaves, because all of that, all things Shinra sort of feels like a danger to what is her daughter, right? We're gonna play up until we get to our save point, and then we're gonna finish off for today, I think. I actually forget to like this inner monologue. Talking to you about the past. Ah, yes, speaking of mothers, here's Cloud's mother. This has some melancholia to it. Because, this is implied. Cloud's made Soldier and, basically realized his dream back home in Nibelheim, and he seems sort of apathetic at this scene. Yeah. It does feel sort of bad because, we all know Cloud's basically an untrusted narrator right now because of his sort of mixed memory situation and everything. So I actually forget, like, this has to be Cloud's mother, right? But this isn't because this happened in Nibelheim, so it can't be Zach's memory because he's not from Nibelheim. So and so this has a little bit of melancholia for what happens later, because this might have been their last exchange, really. And yeah, we don't know that at this time, of course, but bits and pieces, bits and pieces. I think, going a little bit to what Dave said, it's like how much of this is able to grab you, how much of it is able to entice you, is a huge factor for your enjoyment, because there is some, you could call it non-linearity. It is actually fairly straightforward with when it goes flashback. It's very evident when it's flashing back, but we do have a lot of weird memories going on right now. Oh, Dave. Oh, Dave. I love you. I love you, man. I love you, man, and your opinions. Like, of course, you have like the gaming contrarian. Of course, he loves Final Fantasy 8 and everything, right? Yeah, I think we're gonna round off there. Or if it's a little short, been a little bit more casual this time around. Definitely have stuff in the folder of images and everything that I want to get more into. Let's see if we can. Nice. Nice. Jeg elsker deg også. Love you, man. No, seriously, thank you very much for everybody for coming in here. I hope you guys like this. Sometimes we go very analytical into things. Sometimes we sort of talk about other stuff. I'm enjoying myself. Uh, it's fun, Mulgaro. It's all fine. All fine. This is like a fun thing. Yeah, so I was saying earlier, this week I'm probably going to be streaming a little bit extra to make affiliate. I'm going to be doing an art stream and probably a second Final Fantasy VII stream. I want to thank you guys very much for coming in here. As always, it does mean a lot. I think I'm building towards something, building something that I think is adding to my life, something that is also going to be adding to the stuff that I do. Especially when I'm doing art and such on stream. Uh, and yeah, thank you guys very much for popping in. I'll see you guys later this week. Check the social medias, check the Discord for when streams happen, and take care.